Not Nerd Podcast, episode 257, Apple Silicon Event, One More Thing.
Welcome to the Not Nerd Podcast. I'm Nate Heath, and we are here to help you tech better. Here with me, as always, Mr. Dave Baylor.
Well, hello there, Nate. And you know what? I'm hungry. And you know what I like to eat?
What?
I like to eat chips. I love me some chips. And for those in the UK, I'm talking about potato chips, not French fries, although I love French fries. But why did I start the show mentioning chips, Nate? Any idea?
Well, I think I might. We just got done watching Apple's One More Thing event where they announced some new chips. And yes, you did hear that correctly. This is not an old episode. This is the third Apple event this fall, the third one in 2 months. And I am very grateful that they decided to do this event Tuesday morning, November 10th, because I will remind people we are the most nonpartisan tech podcast on the internet. And because of this event, that means that we can avoid talking about anything dealing with the election at this point. So
yes.
We can talk about Apple's event today. I did have a couple quick pieces of follow-up. Some people might have noticed last week that the audio at the beginning of our episode, in episode 256, wasn't quite up to our normal par. Well, this is why I love to say one backup is none backup, because we record both locally on our computers and using a great new service we're using, Zencastr. And about 5 minutes into the recording, I said something about me being an idiot and that I hadn't hit record on Zencastr. So
truer words were never spoken.
Yes. Luckily, we did not have to record the last 5 minutes. But if you did notice things sounded a little bit differently, that's why. So it's a great reminder, not just with your data and your photos and that stuff, but having a backup plan is always a good idea.
Yeah, and I consulted with a friend of the show, Wes, regarding videotaping an event. And a little pro tip I gave to him was, hey, why don't you set up your phone, of which he did a flex of, oh, you mean my new iPhone 12 Pro?
Yes.
I said, why don't you set that up to record in addition to your camcorder in case you need to cut, or in case there's a SD card malfunction or the battery dies or something, so that you do not lose any footage. And he actually did that and needed to cut to his camera. So that's another example of one backup is none backup.
Yes. We like to remind people that. Be prepared, as the Boy Scouts once said. I did also want to quickly mention, since we had an Apple event, that Apple released their Apple One bundle, I think a couple weeks ago now. I haven't seen a ton of coverage on it. This is the thing where you pay one monthly fee and you can get all of the, or most of the Apple services bundled together, like music and games and TV Plus and all of that stuff. I have not signed up for it. I did look this morning. You can get a 1 month free trial. They do not have the Apple Fitness yet, which is the one for the new Apple Watches.
That's the one you're probably desperate to try out.
Well, I should. my body is desperate to have me try that one out. But take a look at it. See if it's worth it for you. If you've got a family and you're using a bunch of the services, you can get a deal there. But I did just want to mention that, yes, we are aware that is released. I do have a friend that she signed up for it. I need to check in with her and see how much she's utilizing everything. But again, I have Apple TV Plus free through whatever, February now. And then with my new phone, I do get the 3 months of Apple Arcade for 3 months with my new iPhone purchase again. So I have that. The music I don't use because I've currently got Spotify and Tidal, don't ask. The storage I already pay for 2 terabytes. So I might eventually end up there, but just doesn't make sense for me at the moment.
Well, I tried to shoehorn in my stuff as well, because I pay for Apple storage and I pay for Spotify. And I'm like, hey, for the price of Apple storage and Spotify, I could get the middle tier of the, maybe it's the beginning or the middle tier of the Apple One. However, that would mean I would have to drop down my iCloud storage down to 200 gigabytes from 2 terabytes. And I'm just like, come on, Apple. And then it would cost me another $10 or $6 or whatever to get it back up, which would mean I'd be paying $5 more to do that versus what I have. However, when Apple TV Plus runs out in February, then I might reconsider this because that may or may not be a service that we want to continue. Right now, we're watching Ted Lasso after that.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. And one more thing, if you are looking at getting new iPhones, Dave and I will both, or should both have 12 Pro Maxes in our hands. I currently have, or this Friday, I have a 12 Pro in my hands. I do have a friend that is expecting her 12 Mini on Friday, but there is a very cool website if you just want to play around with it and see the different sizes and kind of pick and choose your colors and all that, that we will have a link in the show notes. It's experience.apple/iPhone for the iPhone selector. So I know a lot of people are eyeing a new iPhone, maybe talking to their carriers about what kind of deals they can get, for trading in their old devices, which the carriers are being pretty aggressive on that. So these are some the iPhones 12 are pretty great devices, but let us know if you have any questions on which one you should buy.
Yeah, and that Experience website only works on mobile, on your phone.
Gotcha.
I went to the website and it's like, here, scan this barcode so that you can do it on your phone because it needs the touch screen and all the fancy stuff.
Yes. Okay, well, back to the One More Thing events. We had, once again, amazing video production throughout, flying around Apple's campus and in and out of rooms and buildings and all that good stuff. But yeah, Dave, why don't you start us off and tell us what happened?
Well, of course, Tim comes out and we were greeted this time by a in-depth look of the cafeteria of Apple campus. These gigantic 45, 50-foot doors opened up to reveal this nice, it looked like an endless Apple store with just kind of light wood tables and chairs everywhere. He quickly, gave an overview of the state of Apple and then switched over to one of his product managers, who was the host for the rest of the show, and went right into what we knew from the last announcement, that there was going to be a new chip. And Apple calls this the M1 chip. And they've been making silicon chips for over a decade, they reminded us, with the iPhones and the iPads and the Apple TVs and all the Apple Watch and stuff. So this is nothing new to them. They have a lot of history and experience doing this, but this is the first time that they're bringing this technology into their mainstream line of mobile computers. And so today they started out talking about the chip. It's optimized for low power. It's the first system on a chip that they've made for a Mac. Formerly, you would have your CPU, and then you'd have a graphics unit built into that, but then you'd usually have a discrete graphics chip that was separate, and then the RAM and other storage were kind of all modular and bolted to a motherboard. Well, now they put many of those components all inside of one chip. It's called System on a Chip, of course. There are benefits to that. One of the new technologies that they've integrated into this SoC is the unified memory architecture. And Nate, you and I are not computer scientists, but what this seems is that you've got different components of memory all throughout your system that work differently, that handshake and share information back and forth. Well, they've found a way to unify this entire process, which leads to fewer handing off data back and forth, so they can do things much more efficiently and faster. The new chips also based on their 5 nanometer technology, and I hate to point it out, but Intel is still on 7 nanometers. I think they just cannot progress to the smaller size, and of course, the smaller size allows you to pack more transistors in a smaller space, so that it's more power efficient and it's faster. I know it doesn't seem like it would make that big of a difference, but it really does. They can pack 16 billion transistors on this chip. Can you believe that?
I can't. I cannot even fathom.
I can't even count to 100. So 16 billion is up there. But not to bore you, I'll just go through a couple more of these specs before we get to the next thing. 8-core CPU. It's faster, of course, than any other thing out there on the planet. With their 8 cores, this is not new, but they reminded us that, you have 4 slower cores that are power efficient, and then you've got 4 faster cores that are not power efficient, and it switches seamlessly between needing more energy to perform things like video editing, or if you're just surfing the web, it kicks back down to the lower power cores. Then, of course, that's the CPU. That's the central processing unit. But they also have an 8-core graphical processing unit in there. Did I say all that right? I hope so.
Close enough.
CPU,
a
computer.
lot of numbers.
Yeah. Central processing unit versus the graphical processor unit. They're all in the system in a chip. With the graphics, you can do like 25,000 threads of information at the exact same time. They've got this neural engine that does machine learning and all this stuff. It's just crazy. These are not new technologies that we haven't heard about before, but this is the first time they've put everything into a chip and stuck it inside a Mac. And so here in a few moments, we're going to see kind of what the benefits of that are.
Yes. And then after they went through all those numbers, which I am impressed you made it through that list, that is a lot of statistics. Craig Federighi, Hair Force One, as they call him, came out with his shirt unbuttoned, one or two too many buttons, and he talked about Big Sur, the latest version of the operating system, which does release. They let us know Thursday, November 12th, so that'll be coming to all Macs that can run it. So any that within the last 5 or 6 years, I think at least, you'll be able to update that. But it has really been developed to work with this Apple Silicon, and the new M1 chip. And he said that it instantly wakes from sleep, and had a MacBook Air, and got real cozy with it, and was so happy about that, which I'm sure we'll see many more memes. We've already seen them flying around the interwebs. But he said that it's 2 times more responsive, the universal apps, so you'll be able to use iOS apps on your Mac. Rosetta 2, which allows you to use apps that haven't been updated for the new chips. And they said a lot of times in the emulation or whatever they're doing there, it'll work better than it did on your old Mac anyways.
Yeah. This stuff is just fascinating. And it's almost like Big Sur. Well, it's no surprise that Big Sur was developed hand in hand with the development of this M1 chip. It was designed for Apple Silicon. It's just going to have all kinds of advantages running on Apple's chips versus Intel's chips. And that Rosetta layer, just to be clear to those who aren't too familiar with all this stuff, is that you can't run Intel programs on Apple's new chip. It's just the architecture is different. It's just it's done completely separately. The technologies are different. They do not work. They are not compatible. So Apple has created this software that they've created before every time they do these transitions that sits between your old applications and the new chip. And it emulates the Intel environment for those programs so that they can run. And then it translates that information to the new chips so that your computer can operate it. And all of this done is so blazingly and incredibly fast, it will make your head spin to the point where you don't even realize that you're running an old application. They just run like they always would. But behind the scenes, there's so much going on. And this is a huge technological achievement to make this thing work as well as it does.
Yes. And so then I'm going to combine these because they all end up being very similar. They spent the next probably 20, 30 minutes talking through the 3 products that they are announcing with the new M1 chip. The first was the MacBook Air, and then a new Mac Mini, and a new 13-inch MacBook Pro. Now, looking at all of these devices, you would not know that they are new on the outside, but the insides have all been redone to work with the M1 chip, cooling, all that stuff. So we've got 3 different computers. They're all, Apple's smallest and kind of more entry level. These aren't the pro level computers that we saw today, but they look really good. The MacBook Air, they say this M1 chip is 3.5 times faster than the CPU and 5 times faster graphics performance, again, because they're able to do all of this integrated stuff on their one chip. I mean, that really takes the MacBook Air from kind of a non-performance machine and really ups the game there.
Yeah, it's kind of like if you bought last year's MacBook Pro and compared it with today's MacBook Air, you might get similar performance on the things.
Yeah.
And one is a much more expensive, beefier machine that you may have spent $2,500 on, and the other one starts at $999. I would love to see some of the benchmarks between last year's Pro models and this year's Air models, just to see how they stack up. This is why it's exciting, is because you can spend money on the cheapest machine and have as good or better performance than the Pro machines of yesterday.
Yes. And so then the Mac Mini, that thing's still kicking around. The new one starts at $699, and they say 3 times faster CPU and just a lot better performance. And they did compare these devices to PC computers, and just, I mean, really, in summary, this M1 chip, I think Apple is really changing the game for computer processors here.
Mm-hmm.
The 13-inch MacBook Pro, which, again, gets a lot faster. Now, on the two laptops, the Air and the Pro, one of the things is these new chips run so much more efficiency that you're getting, like, amazing battery lives out of these. So it will truly be, in one of the little promo videos, the guy said, the battery lasts longer than I'm usually awake in a day. And I think we're really going to see that. So this is a huge advantage on these devices is how efficient these chips are and how much less power they use. The MacBook Air doesn't even have a fan in it, and it should stay much cooler than current devices.
Yeah. So the 13-inch MacBook Pro, normally you can watch 10 hours of video. I mean, who's watching 10 hours of video? I mean, nobody.
Yeah.
But it's a benchmark, it's a spec. And so they're like, now you can watch 20 hours of video. I mean, That's insane. You put it on the charger at night, you wake up in the morning, you unplug it from the charger, and for the rest of the day, you're mobile. Because you got to go to lunch. I mean, maybe you're going to watch movies at lunch and you still use your computer. But the chances of it being open and on and being used all day long, never plugged in, never shut off, is probably not practical. So for many people, this is going to last them all day. And you know what? There are going to be some people who are like, I only charge my MacBook every couple days.
Yeah.
Because they don't, you know what I mean? They're like, it's in my bag, and I find after 3 days I need to plug it in. And it's like, this is a world that hasn't existed for computers. Now it exists for tablet devices and some smartphones and those type of things. But for your laptop, this is a new world we're entering into.
Yeah, I'm really impressed. And again, we will see, like you were saying, the benchmarks. I was actually running some benchmarks on my laptop last night. But just to see real world, the improvements on these things. And they did a very good job of selling it and throwing in us enough numbers at us to make it look like it's going to be a big improvement. And I really, truly do believe that this is going to be a big jump. And then, they said, I think at the beginning, over the next couple years, they're going to be doing this transition completely over to their own chips from Intel. So I don't know which will be last on the list. Maybe the Mac Pro, which is their super high end, but I guarantee you they've got a roadmap for this. We didn't see an iMac today. They didn't replace my 16-inch MacBook Pro, which I'm glad. I've almost had it a year now, so I don't feel like I need to replace it yet. But my take on this stuff, especially if you need a new computer, man, I would be really looking at these. I think there are just some huge advantages here. They did announce that you can order them now. The times are probably already slipping quite far as you hear this episode, but they will be available next week. So I'm going to go on the record and say Apple is going to have an amazing holiday quarter this year with the new iPhones, the new HomePod minis, which I've talked to a couple people that have ordered those that I don't know if we even talked about. Those are available. The new watches being available, all these new Macs.
The new iPad Air.
Oh yeah, the new iPad Air, which is a great machine. They are unloading right now, and I think it does benefit us. The prices, maybe we mentioned, the MacBook Air starts at $999, the Mac Mini starts at $699, and the 13-inch MacBook Pro starts at $1299. They do have $100 cheaper models for education. One of the things I poked just before we started recording, we're doing a pretty quick turnaround today between the event and recording, looking on Apple's website, I was clicking through. It's a much simpler process. You don't have all the options, because before on a laptop you had, well, which Intel chip do you want? Do you need to upgrade? Which RAM chip? Or, how much RAM do you want? How much storage? Well, now that the M1 chip exists, it's basically like, here's your processor. Do you want 8 or 16 gigs of RAM? And how much storage do you need? So it does simplify it for the buyer, which is, I don't know how the average person, the average not nerd, ever purchases a computer because of all the options you have. So while they are vastly advancing technology, they're also simplifying the process of what you should buy.
Yeah, it's kind of like you don't have to worry about the chip. You're just worrying about the chassis. Do I want to spend a little bit of money to get the MacBook Air? Do I want to up my game to get a beefier computer that's got a fan in it so that it can run hotter and faster? Or do I want a desktop model with a Mac Mini that I hook my own keyboard, my mouse, and my monitor to? And that's it. You're choosing the physical profile of the machine and not the components inside.
Yes. Now, Dave, I think I know your answer, but we always ask this at the end of our event episodes. Will you be buying any of these devices, Dave?
You know what? I came recently into a lot of money, and I'm just going to buy one of each and just rotate through them. Of course, I'm lying. I have no more money than I did before. So what's tempting for me is that MacBook Air, because currently I'm toting around my Generation 3 iPad Air, not to be confused with the Air nomenclature. Yes. It's a couple years old at this point, and it's not the best, and it's very light and portable. And so now I'm like, well, hey, if I'm going to upgrade, should I upgrade to a new iPad, or should I upgrade to this MacBook Air? Because as we've talked about, one of the great things about iPads is the applications that are on there, the games, the apps, the everything. Well, now those will all start working on MacBooks that are outfitted with, or all Macintoshes that are outfitted with the M1 chip. And so it just kind of closes the gap on the difference. Of course, we still don't have touchscreens. I think that was one thing that people were hoping to see, was the touchscreen Mac with these M1 chips. I'll answer your question. I want to transition into my next thought. So no, I won't be immediately buying any of these things. But at work, if we need a new computer, we will probably, instead of buying a refurbished or an older model to save a little money, I think we'll go for buying one of these just to see how they perform. So my next thought is, what are we going to see in the future? If I could predict what Apple's going to be dropping next, I think they're redesigning the iMac. That's why we did not see that here. They're going to slim the bezels. They're going to round off the corners. They're going to get rid of the chin, and it's going to be a nice, sleek iMac to go with their new chip. And I think the reason we didn't see the 16-inch laptop is because I think the new 16-inch laptop will be a touchscreen laptop with a all new design. So the ones that were here today were stopgaps. They are faster, better, perform better than last year's model or yesterday's model. But when they start with the new designs, we're going to see things like touchscreens. We're going to see different form factors, and we're going to see those machines really take advantage of all the benefits of the M1 chip.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where this goes. I too will not be buying anything. I am still very happy with my 16-inch MacBook Pro. It works very well in my workflow, and also buying phones and watches and all that stuff. It's not like I'm needing to spend any more money with Apple at the moment. But so very exciting for all of us who are not buying one of these. And if you do have a Mac, you can look forward to updating to Big Sur if you're wanting to do that right away. If you don't need to, and if you have any special software that you really need to be able to make money or survive, you might hold off a couple days. But I think I'm going to go for it. You've been running the beta. What's your current thoughts?
Yeah, right now the beta is everything's working okay. I do have a mail client that's not behaving 100% properly, but I think that's the mail client's issue and not the OS.
Yeah.
I will recommend to people, because remember, one backup is none backup.
Mhm.
All of you should be backing up your computers semi-regularly, I would think, but it is trivial. I'm telling you, trivial for the Macs to just plug in a hard drive, do a Time Machine backup, then do your Big Sur update, because you can always downgrade and rebuild your computer with that old backup if you're finding, all of my plugins for my program are not working, or I was using some antiquated version of Adobe products, or whatever. We have someone at work who was asking about upgrading to Catalina, which is famous for breaking compatibility with 32-bit applications like Microsoft Word 2008 and Adobe CS2 and all these other apps that people have been using for years because they've continued to work. That was the line in the sand. And I said, well, you can upgrade to Catalina if you want, but those apps are going to break. So the solution there would have been make a backup, go ahead and upgrade. If you can't live without those apps or it breaks something that you're not familiar with, then you can always restore from a backup. So please back up before you do a major OS upgrade.
Yes, good tip. Well, I think we will wrap up this episode, our third Apple event special episode this fall. We will return to normally scheduled programming next week and get you back updated on everything else going on in the world of technology. But thank you for listening today. Now get out there and tech better.
Oh, I will.